The universe was not kind. It was a gray-black void, choked with cosmic dust, indifferent to the fragile flicker of life aboard the HMS Providence. 3 years ago, Earth burned, and with it, humanity's dreams of home. Now, this creaking, duct-taped explorer ship, never meant for war, carried the last 2,000 souls in its icy cryobays, racing toward a distant cluster called the Haven. Captain Elena Cruz stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the endless dark, knowing the Kthar were coming, relentless, insect-like hunters who turned worlds to ash. The Providence wasn't fast. It wasn't armed. It was just stubborn. And when the red warning light screamed, signaling a Kthar Reaper-class cruiser closing in, Cruz clenched her fist and whispered, "Not today. Not us." The vastness of space had a color, and that color was dust. It wasn't a romantic, star-strewn black. It was a cold, empty gray-black, broken only by the dim, distant smear of galaxies they were running toward. 3 years. 3 years the old girl, the HMS Providence, had been pushing through that dust. She was humanity's last stand, not a warship, but an antique deep space explorer. She was built for science, for quiet mapping, but now she carried the final hope, 2,000 souls packed into the ship's large, cold cryobays. They were tucked in like seeds in the ground, waiting for a spring that might never come. On the bridge, Captain Elena Cruz rubbed the back of her neck. The lights here were kept low to save power, giving the room a permanent feeling of late night. Cruz looked tired, like everyone else. Her uniform was faded, and her command chair was duct-taped in 3 places. That tape summed up the whole ship. They were running from the Kthar. The Kthar were better at everything involving war. They had faster drives, harder shields, and a terrifying lack of mercy. They looked like walking insects, huge, hard-shelled, and totally focused on cleaning the universe of the soft, disorganized things called humans. The war hadn't been a long struggle, it had been a fast, loud noise. Earth was ash. The few colonies were silent. The Providence was heading for the Haven, a cluster of stars so far out and so hard to reach that the Kthar had never bothered to map it. It was their last bet, a 1,000-year trip crammed into a 300-year estimate, thanks to pushing the old drive past its limits every day. Marco, the young navigator, was hunched over his main screen, a maze of lines and light blue data. He was constantly checking the math, worried about every stray proton and every tiny gravitational shift. Marco was brilliant, but he wore his worry like a heavy coat. "How's the course look, Marco?" Captain Cruz asked, her voice low. "Fine, Captain. We're still 3 degrees off the expected trajectory, saving us maybe a year of fuel, but it's putting more stress on the main structure." "She's moaning, but she's holding. She's built by humans," Cruz said simply. "She'll moan, but she won't break." A long moment of quiet passed. The only sounds were the low hum of the life support and the hiss of the air recycler. Then, the scream started. It wasn't a noise the ship made, it was a noise the ship was told to make. The red light flashed on the console with a sharp, ugly pulse that hit every nerve. Emergency warning. External contact. High-power drive signature detected. Cruz was on her feet instantly. The tiredness was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. Status. Marco's hands flew across his board. His face was white. Jump-in signature detected. Kthar class. A patrol cruiser. Not a fleet, but it's a Reaper class. They're fast. And it's already got an intercept course locked. A single Kthar ship. But for the Providence, that was the entire Kthar fleet. They couldn't run. They couldn't hide. The Reaper class was designed to catch and end things like them. Distance? Cruz asked. 30 minutes to range. 20 to weapons lock, Marco choked out. Captain Cruz looked at the view screen, which showed nothing but black. She knew that out there, that bug ship was already calculating their destruction. She hit the internal comm switch. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. All hands. We have a Kthar intercept. This is not a drill. We will not be stopping. We will not be surrendering. We will survive. Jana, get to the engines. We need a faster push, and we need it now. Marco, find us a place to hide that no sane pilot would touch. Mr. Chen, get ready. You've got the comms. She looked at Marco, whose fingers were shaking over the navigation console. Marco, you have 15 minutes to find the impossible. Jana and the engine room. The engine room was a hell of heat and noise. It smelled like hot metal, burning oil, and years of sweat. Chief Engineer Jana hit the ladder running. She was strong and covered in grease, a human who fixed things with muscle and smarts, not just numbers. Her team was already there, a handful of mechanics who hadn't slept properly in days. The main reactor was humming at 100% capacity, but it wasn't enough. The old kinetic drives were shaking the ship apart, but the speed wasn't climbing fast enough. Jana slammed her hand on the main power conduit. The metal was almost too hot to touch. Status. Why aren't we gaining speed? A young mechanic named Finn yelled over the roar, "Chief, the main flow valve on the M9 injector is cycling too slow. It's designed for a low-power cruising, not this. We're pushing too much heat, but the fuel mixture isn't keeping up." Jana looked at the massive metal valve. It was a factory part, a beautiful piece of complex alien tech they bought before the war. It was clean and complicated, and it was failing. "It's choked," Jana muttered, running a hand over the housing. "It's throttling us. We need to override it, but the software's locked." Finn looked hopeless. "If we bypass the software, the pressure will blow out the secondary cooling loop in 10 minutes. We'd melt the core." Jana shook her head. "We don't have 10 minutes, Finn. We have 5. She didn't reach for the computer override. She didn't look for a clean switch. She looked around the room. Her eyes landed on a storage locker against the wall. It contained spare parts, not for the engine, but for the ship's old deep-core mining drill. She grabbed a heavy-duty, reinforced ceramic sleeve, designed to protect the drill bit from extreme heat and pressure thousands of meters underground. Then she grabbed the thick, metal, 3-pronged wrench they used to tighten the drill heads. Simple tools. Simple purpose. Finn, open the primary access panel on the M9 valve. Now. But Chief, the pressure. I know the pressure. Do it. Finn hesitated for a second, then his belief in Jana took over. He hit the release. A plume of superheated steam hissed out, smelling like burning plasma. Jana didn't flinch. She grabbed the ceramic sleeve. It was too long, but she jammed it into the valve housing, bypassing the smooth curves of the factory part. Marco needs a big, fast push, right now. This sleeve is going to hold the main fuel channel open. It will force the flow through, but it's not tight enough. We'll lose pressure. She picked up the huge, 3-pronged drill wrench. It was too big for the job. It was heavy. Finn, hold this valve open. I need 30 seconds of clear space on the housing. Jana grabbed a piece of thick, kitchen piping she had saved from a repair job on the mess hall sink last week. It was copper and strong. She wrapped the copper pipe around the neck of the valve housing, then jammed the end of the large drill wrench into the gap between the copper wrap and the housing, using it as a simple, massive wedge. It was a total mess. It was ugly. It looked like something a frantic person built with things found in a garbage dump. But the massive wrench, wedged tight against the copper pipe, was forcing the ceramic sleeve to hold steady, opening the M9 injector wide. The ship roared. Not a moan, but a high-pitched, angry scream. The floor vibrated so hard Jana's teeth rattled. A light on the console that had been red turned a furious, pulsing yellow. They were going faster. Much, much faster. It's holding. The flow rate is at 150%. Finn screamed, a mix of terror and triumph in his voice. It won't last 10 minutes, Jana said, wiping sweat and oil from her eyes. But we bought the time. Get a fire extinguisher ready, just in case. And Finn? Tell the captain we are giving Marco everything we've got. This ugly thing is the engine now. Marco and the asteroid field, the crazy idea. On the bridge, the increased speed was obvious. The ship groaned, but the velocity counter was finally climbing quickly. Jana had delivered. She did it, Captain Cruz breathed, watching the numbers jump. But it's not enough. That Reaper class is still closing, Captain. They're running on pure military power. We'll be in weapons range in 12 minutes. Marco, hunched over his map, suddenly let out a sharp, quick breath. He didn't look up. He was staring at a part of the map that was marked in heavy, flashing yellow lines. I found it, he whispered. The impossible part. What is it? Cruz leaned forward, her eyes scanning the data stream. An uncharted cluster of rocks. It's not an asteroid belt, Captain. It's a field. An old planetoid that got pulled apart by twin black holes years ago. The remnants, they're unstable. It's a mess of rock, ice, and heavy metals. They call it the shiver zone on the old survey files. Unstable how? The gravity pulls are erratic. The rocks aren't moving in predictable paths. They jump. They stop. They hit each other. Anything with a decent sensor system would avoid it by 100 million kilometers. Their computers would scream at the risk. Marco pointed a trembling finger at the center of the field on the map. It was a white blur of danger. We can't go around it. They'll catch us. But if we go through the core, the rocks are dense enough, and the energy surges from the collisions are so messy, it would blind the Kthar sensors. They rely on clean data. They rely on logic. Captain Cruz looked from Marco to the map. Flying through that was like trying to run through a storm of razor blades. One piece of metal, no bigger than a car, hitting the Providence at this speed would kill them all. Marco, the flight path has to be precise. Perfect. Marco swallowed hard. I know, Captain. I need 5 minutes to plot the entry, the central route, and the exit. It's the tightest needle thread I've ever done. It demands a series of 15 microcorrections a second for the whole duration. If I miss one, we're dust. The Kthar won't follow us in, though. No, Marco said, a flicker of pride in his voice. They value their ship. They value the mission. They'd never risk a Reaper on a path their computers reject. This is a human kind of crazy, Captain. It's too messy for them. Then give me the path, Cruz said, standing straight. And get ready to fly it by hand. Turn off the main autopilot. We'll do this the hard way. Marco nodded, his hands already flying across the console, his worry now channeled into laser-like focus. He began to draw the impossible line across the shiver zone. Mr. Chen and the bluff. In the communications room, a small, quiet space next to the bridge, Mr. Chen straightened his faded shirt. He was the most unlikely man for this job. Before the war, he had been a professor of ancient literature. Now, he was the voice of humanity. He had a gentle face and a steady voice that rarely rose above a calm talking level. He knew the Kthar didn't understand soft words, and they didn't understand human emotions like mercy or fear. They understood power, logic, and efficiency. The Kthar cruiser had finally entered comms range. A flat, metallic, clicking voice filled the room. Unidentified vessel, you are in violation of Kthar territory. Cease all engine function and prepare for immediate boarding. Failure to comply will result in ship demolition. Mr. Chen took a deep breath. He didn't use any fancy codes or complex military jargon. He just used the language of a tired man talking about a hard, simple fact. He spoke into the microphone, his voice calm, clear, and perfectly steady. Kthar Cruiser. This is the HMS Providence. The alien voice clicked back, impatient. The designation is irrelevant. Prepare for cessation. Listen to me, Mr. Chen continued, not raising his voice, not speeding up. You have made a bad math error. This ship is not an escape vessel. This ship is a bait trap. The alien communication paused. The silence was heavier than the threat had been. Mr. Chen didn't wait for them to respond. He kept going, painting a picture with only 5-syllable words and simple concepts. You are one cruiser. You are looking for an easy win. You are looking for a broken bird. You did not find one. You found the trigger. The humans who built this ship knew the war was lost. So we built one thing to survive, and we built one thing to make sure you never forgot us. This is that second thing. He lowered his voice just a fraction, making them lean in, making them pay attention to the silence around his words. We have no crew awake. We have no weapons. This ship is filled with fuel, reactors, and the biggest bomb you will ever meet. Our mission is simple, to lure a cruiser like yours, close to our main reactor core, and explode. We take you with us. You die, and you show your commanders that humans still have a way to bite back, even when we are empty. The alien voice clicked again, a low, buzzing sound that meant confusion. Your data does not match. Your hull strength is low. Your speed is erratic. You are an obsolete civilian vessel. All of that is true, Mr. Chen said easily, a slight smile on his face. We are old. We are slow. We are broken. That is why we are a perfect trap. If we were a warship, you would not be this close. But you see an easy target. And you came close. That was your mistake. He pressed a button and changed the comms channel so the Kthar could hear the high, painful scream of the engine room, Jana's patched-up monstrosity roaring at its limit. Hear that? Mr. Chen asked. That is the sound of our engine being pushed past its breaking point. It is the sound of a reactor on overload. The pilot is flying us toward a hazard zone you won't enter. We are not trying to escape. We are making sure you cannot leave. He finished with one, simple, brutal fact. If you follow us in, you win nothing. You just die a very fast, very bright, and very useless death. On the bridge, Captain Cruz was staring at the ship's map. The Kthar Reaper class was still coming, but its speed had dropped slightly. Chen's simple, steady bluff was working. The Kthar were built on logic. The logic of a bait trap that guaranteed mutual destruction was a clean equation they hated. Marco, how long until we hit the shiver zone? 90 seconds, Captain. I'm going into manual flight control. All hands, prepare for extreme, violent maneuvers. This is going to be bumpy. The ship hit the edge of the shiver zone like a swimmer hitting a wall of concrete. The entire vessel shook with a horrifying, tearing sound. Red warning lights flared across the bridge. In the engine room, Jana and Finn were holding onto the railing for dear life. The drill wrench and pipe contraption was shaking itself loose. Sparks flew from the M9 injector like fireworks. Finn, hold the wrench. We can't lose speed now. Jana screamed, trying to wedge a piece of metallic insulation into the gap to stabilize the fix. The heat was unbearable. Marco was flying with inhuman focus. His eyes were wide, but his hands were steady. He wasn't looking at the external view, it was just a blur of passing black and white rock. He was staring at the telemetry, at the blue line he had drawn. Correction. -3 degrees roll. Now. Correction. 0.5% engine output increase for half a second. Every second was a fight. The ship was being bombarded by tiny pieces of grit that sounded like shotgun blasts on the hull. The sheer complexity of the erratic gravity fields fought his steering. He was fighting math itself. "We are in the core, Captain," Marco yelled. "External sensors are gone. Total interference. They can't see us. But we can barely see the rock right in front of us." At that moment, the Kthar cruiser made its move. The alien captain, unable to follow the erratic path and confused by Chen's steady threats, made a cautious compromise. It didn't retreat, but it tried to position itself just outside the shiver zone, waiting for the Providence to exit. But Mr. Chen was still talking. "You're waiting for us," he said, his voice now sounding disappointed, like a fisherman whose trap didn't catch the best fish. "That is still a bad math error. We have started our final sequence. We will not be exiting. We are only going deeper. The clock is ticking, Kthar. Every second you wait, we get closer to the final detonation point." The Kthar cruiser's logic system was simple: loss of one cruiser is acceptable. Loss of one cruiser for zero gain is not. The thought of wasting a ship on a pointless suicide trap was an offense to their efficiency. The Reaper cruiser hesitated. It sat there, its engines idling, its sensors useless. Inside the Providence, Marco flew blind. The ship took a huge, shuddering blow that sounded like a building collapsing. Lights flickered. Hull breach warning. Section C4. Small puncture. Air pressure holding. A voice from engineering screamed over the comms. "Stay on the line, Chen." Cruz ordered. "Marco, how long?" 20 seconds to the exit point." "Hold. Hold the line." Marco's fingers were white on the controls. His focus was so intense he didn't even blink. He was running on pure adrenaline and the knowledge that his hands were the last thing standing between 2,000 sleeping people and total extinction. In the engine room, the patched-up wrench finally slipped a centimeter, and the engine scream dropped. The speed fell instantly. "Jana. We need that push. We're slowing down." Cruz yelled. Jana didn't answer with words. She screamed in frustration, grabbing the wrench and using all her weight and muscle to slam it back into the pipe and the ceramic sleeve. The engine screamed back to life, louder and hotter than before. It was a noise of pain, but also of effort. Marco felt the boost. He made his final micro-correction, throwing the ship sideways. The Providence scraped past a final, huge, tumbling chunk of space rock the size of a mountain. Then, just as suddenly as they entered, they were out. They burst from the shiver zone. The ship was still vibrating, shaking, and coughing, but they were in the clear. Captain Cruz looked at the sensor display. The Kthar Reaper class was still at the entrance to the shiver zone. It had not followed. It had not even moved to pursue. It was holding steady, its logic system frozen by the risk of the trap. Mr. Chen's voice came over the comms, still perfectly calm. "You missed your chance, Kthar. We are now past our detonation point. Mission complete." Then, the Kthar ship turned. It didn't engage. It didn't send a final threat. It simply recalculated the odds, marked the coordinates as a high-risk zone, and jumped out of the sector. The blip was gone. The ending. The silence that fell over the bridge was almost worse than the screaming. The red light stopped flashing, and the main screen returned to its usual gray-black dust. Captain Cruz sank back into her duct-taped chair. She closed her eyes for a long moment, letting the terror and the release wash over her. "Marco. Damage report." Marco was leaning on his console, breathing hard, trying to slow his hands. "Hull breach C4 is contained. The reactor is on emergency cooling. We lost maybe 0.5% of our main power reserves. But, we're clear. We're moving again." Jana's voice was hoarse over the comms. "Engine is alive, Captain. But I need 6 hours to pull the junk out of the injector and put a real patch on it. We can't push like that again. 6 hours is fine, Chief. You just bought us a lifetime. Cruz stood up and walked into the communications room. Mr. Chen was sitting there, his headset resting on the console, drinking a cup of stale water. He looked tired again, just a professor of old books who had just talked a massive warship out of existence. You were brilliant, Chen, Cruz said, simply. I just told them that giving up was worse for them than fighting, Captain, Mr. Chen replied, shrugging slightly. Humans are good at finding the ugly options. We're good at being the kind of enemy no one wants to fight, the one who dies just to spite you. Captain Cruz walked back to the main console. She looked at the display, which showed the tiny icon of the HMS Providence. It was dented, battered, and moving slowly. The damage report showed the dozens of microdents from the asteroid field. She thought of Jana's hands forcing the drill wrench into the engine, of Marco's eyes staring down death, and of Chen's calm, terrifying voice. The ship was broken in 100 new ways, but the core was intact. The sleepers were safe. The line to the haven was still on the map. Captain Cruz looked at the ship's status readout, at the simple, battered lines of the vessel that had just won a fight not with weapons, but with sheer, stubborn human will. She nodded once, a deep certainty in the tired lines of her face. The hull held. We keep going. This draft hits the core plot points and maintains the simple, human tone you requested, focusing on the effort and ingenuity of the crew. Let me know if you would like to adjust the pacing, dive deeper into Jana's inventive repair, or perhaps refine Mr. Chen's simple, intimidating dialogue. Conclusion. The Providence limped on, scarred and groaning, its hull pocked from the Shiver Zone's brutal gauntlet. In the engine room, Jana's jury-rigged wrench-hand pipe fix hummed dangerously, a testament to human desperation. Marco's hands, still trembling from threading the impossible path, rested on the console. Mr. Chen's calm, deceptive words echoed in the silence, having outwitted a warship with nothing but a bluff. Captain Cruz stood on the bridge, her gaze tracing the faint line on the map to the haven, a 1,000-year gamble for survival. The ship was battered, its power flickering, but its core held. 2,000 sleepers dreamed on, untouched. Cruz's voice was quiet but unyielding. The hull is hope, she said. And hope keeps going.